Good morning, sisters and brothers. I greet you in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ with both grace, love, and peace. It's a beautiful Friday, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today. We're here with my amazing friend and brother, the co-author of the amazing book, Fixing the Broken Man, Kaleb Sile. How you doing, Kaleb?
I'm doing good. Good morning. How you doing today?
Well, man,
Thanks for having me here, man.
I'm glad you're here, bro. And listen, man, it's been a long time coming. I'm just grateful for the fact that you're here today. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, as they say in the industry, which I'm not in, I'm from a humble beginning. But on a serious note, just a young dude. Am I that young? I guess I'm young. Trying to find himself and also to help others do the same. And part of the message that I'm trying to convey in this book that you're helping me co-author is absolutely for young men and women too,
Right.
to understand where they're coming from, where they're going, and where they need to be through trials and tribulation that they go through in life, whether it be mental health struggles, whether it be generational passed on of type of behaviors that you question at times, and a few other things which you will kind of dive into a little bit. And that's just the setup of what we have here. But overall, it's just getting the message out, telling my truth, so to speak.
That's a blessing, man. I think a lot of times, if we're not careful, people tend to not really look at the importance of getting themselves in the right place. That whole concept about fixing you. I think what's important is that we first need to acknowledge that we're broken.
Yeah.
And that's hard for some people.
It's very hard.
If we can kind of just get into the meat of it. So I know the book is kind of driving toward this whole concept of about mental health, marriage, and masculinity.
Yes.
What is your take? Because we, especially in the Black community, as it relates to men, we don't talk about mental health.
Yeah.
We don't talk about emotional health at all. We try to stay away from it because your statistics state that that's a sign of weakness. What can you say about that in that pocket? With this platform, what would you say to men who are in marriage but feel as if they're wrestling with mental health?
Yeah, no, you touched on it initially. It's coming to terms with it, admitting it, that you have an issue. And as we've talked about before, on the side, is the admittance piece. Oftentimes we tend to be, we hold a lot in as men because we don't want to come off a certain way, soft, and I'm sure you could use plenty other words. Punk.
Synonyms, right? Just right.
So with that being said, we kind of harbor a lot of these internal struggles, and we don't vocalize it until we take these same bad habits, bad mental struggles, we take it on to a relationship. So you have a broken person getting into a relationship, hoping that the person that they meet can help them fix and find who they are. You don't take something broken and take it somewhere else. It won't fix the situation at hand.
Right. So we could stay there, right? I've done some research as it relates to how does the Bible address mental health. Now it does talk about marriage, what I mean, and we kind of use that as our blueprint, right, to address marriage. But what would you say in the space that you're in, and if you can share? I don't want to impose, but in your personal experience, in your personal relationships, how has that been an obstacle for you?
A great question. I was in a previous marriage, and I see how it has impacted the marriage in its whole. Meaning that there are certain challenges that you're faced with, you don't know how to deal with it. One, you don't know who to talk to, or actually there are people to talk to, but there's no one readily available that you feel comfortable with. And again, it starts with that mental struggle. So with that being said, from my personal experience, I've come to find out that the more even if you could reach out to a friend that you may think don't care, they do care. Speak, talk, express, because you never know who will be able to guide you and say, hey, I know this person that went through the same thing. I know that person that went through the same thing.
Right.
Hey,
I don't want, because I don't want you to get, I'm going to give you all the space and time you need to say what it is, but I don't want you to get off of that for a moment. Because for me, and I'm only going to be transparent, being vulnerable and exposing myself, because the Bible talks about Thomas when he doubted Jesus, how Jesus, he said, if you show me your wounds, then I'll know who you really are.
Absolutely.
Masculinity, especially in marriage, I can only think about relationship as it relates between a husband and wife because I haven't been married as of yet. But how difficult is that for you to show somebody, like, this is where I'm struggling? Because it takes trust, and I'm afraid everybody I've shown myself to has done something wrong to me with that. They've weaponized it. So now men are afraid to say, hey, let me show her my problems. Let me show her where I'm hurting at. So what would you say to that? Like when brothers like find themselves at that crossroad?
That's a good point. I'm gonna reference two things as you talked about scriptures and biblically. One is, and I thought about John 8. Within John 8, as Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, he said to them, you do as you see from your father. I'm doing what I see from my father. Which, and what he said after that? He said, your father the devil. And he said, my father the creator. So I'm doing what he taught me.
That's good.
So again, it takes it, back to what, it's fascinating. You don't realize a lot of the baggage you carry is from your father and what you've seen, whether it be, your biological father or, your homies, because you my dude,
like a father figure to
me. You said it, bro.
That's my partner. Right?
Yes.
I didn't have a dad in the home, and a lot of these young brothers are learning from the streets.
Yes.
Learning from guys who are toxic. Yeah. And not necessarily want to be, because, John 8, Jesus saying that in itself is a strong message. I do as my father. So mental health. So do you think, right, and I want to segue into this, staying on the same thread, do you think that there is a correlation between DNA, because some studies will even reference that our traumas can even come from PTSD, like post-traumatic stress, but post-slavery, like the genetic trauma that is now found its way through our genetic code to us. Do you think a young man can carry the genetic trauma of his father into a marriage?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That's groundbreaking, Carl.
Yes.
Listen, we got to get some PhDs and doctors behind our names and make those type of proclamations.
No, you're spot on, and I actually have some content to share with that regarding, actually, in regard to talking to my mother, and my mother shared something with me, and I will absolutely love to share that with you, as far as that DNA, and being part of who you are, not realizing that it's coming from past generations.
Welcome back, and if you're just joining us, I'm so glad that you tuned in to Can We Talk on Preach the Word Network. I'm here with my brother Kaleb Sile. We were just getting ready to dive into some really good conversation. We want to get back to it. So, Carl, you were getting ready to tell me about the conversation with mom. And now let me say this disclaimer. I love mom stories.
Yes.
And if your mom is anything like my mom, I wanted to send some of our people down to get some popcorn, because I'm feeling like it's going to be a good one. So go ahead and please share with us.
It won't be too in-depth, but it's just a little snippet, just to add some context to how the way you are as a child, especially as, from a male's perspective, how it carry on from your father, and you probably have the same characteristics. So there was an instance where I was talking about some of the challenges that I've faced in my marriage, and not doing certain things that will help with the success of the marriage. And I was telling her that, hey, Mom, yeah, man, I try my best to make sure, I help as much as I can, clean, laundry, whatever it takes. The kids, which obviously it's my responsibility as well, but, I made an extra effort to do those things. But when it comes to the romantic side of things, showing the affection that I need to show on a consistent basis, oftentimes, as soon as, I get a little wind of rejection, I get a little turned off, like, wait, she doesn't want me? And, whether it be touching, hugging, and even if she's like, oh no, I was just trying to grab this piece of paper off the floor. Oh, you don't want me. And so as I was sharing that with my mom, she said, wow, you just like your father. I'm like, really? She said, yes. She's like, there have been instances where we're laying in the bed together, and he would reach to touch me, and I turn around, and all of a sudden, he's done. I'm like, wait, what just happened here? I'm like, my dad was like, she said, oh, you have no idea. That man was interesting. I'm like, wow. She said, sometimes we're playing footsies, and I'm like, hey, she said, I moved my leg, and I'm like, okay, I still want more, but.
Right.
So I've realized, and she alluded to, the same struggle that I'm sharing with her that I've had in my marriage, she's seen in my father as well. Right. Did I know that? Absolutely not.
So that speaks to two chords. One about how, we are trying to, deal with rejection, those mental blocks, you know what I mean? But the second chord is being present in the moment, which is, my second question to you, how are you working on being present in the moment when you're wrestling with that stuff? A lot of times it's difficult because, it alludes to any sudden moves or anything that's not familiar is now a rejection.
Yes.
So what do you think about that? And I know fixing the broken man is on a larger scale.
Yes.
Right. But that is specific. That really stuck with me because I have a hard time with being present in the moment, especially when it comes to intimacy.
Yeah.
Because if you do something that I don't understand, I'm thinking, oh, she don't want me.
Done.
I'm on to the next. You know what I mean? I'm on to the next and not really understanding people's love language. So if you can, what do you think about that?
Now, you touched on something that exactly the direction I was going to go. Love language. And we know it's a book by Gary Chapman and it talks.
Gary, listen.
But more specifically is, oftentimes we give what we think or what feels good and comfortable to us. We show that love in that way. For me personally, it was okay. What comes easy for me? I can help out wherever you need me. If you need me to do this, actually you don't even need me to do this. I'll just do this. And then the woman is looking at you like, that's not my love language. I've been telling you in personal experience. Hey, I've been telling you, Carl. I like physical touch. All right, cool, got it. Why aren't you touching me? Oh, I just did the laundry. Good, but you're not touching me. So,
wow, man. Oh,
so these you're present, but you're not.
Right.
Because you're not catering to what I'm telling you I need. So we can say communication is a factor, but you can communicate, but if you don't understand and comprehend, it's null and void.
So is it, okay, I mean, because I want to be the advocate, where I'm all for the brothers. And I do understand that, women in some spaces have a very different language. And I think it's important to understand your partner's language of love, right? But if I'm giving you what I know to give, should there be an acknowledgement from her or from him to suggest that, hey, I did the laundry, and for me doing things in that space that help that lessen the burden is me saying I care. Did you feel any kind of way that maybe there wasn't some reciprocation coming from your efforts? She wasn't reciprocating with acknowledgement. Hey, I did this, know, and I'm not trying to place you and her on two different sides. I'm just trying to understand, how did you feel about it when you were giving yourself, when you were making yourself present in the moment, because doing the laundry is you being present, but it's not a love language.
Right.
It's not a love. The duality of that is that they don't exist in the same chord. Yeah. I want you to touch me. I want you to watch. I want to wash dishes.
Yes.
I want to touch these dishes. And when we get up, now we both know somebody's feeling. You're feeling fulfilled because you've done what you knew, and she's feeling empty because you didn't give her what she wants. So how did that?
Well said.
How did that impact you, man, personally? Like really, I'm really, Carl. When I'm telling you, I'm really digging because I really want to hear.
Yeah. It impacted me because you start to question what you're doing. And you wonder, okay, what am I doing wrong? Because you're thinking you're doing something great. It's something to brag about. Heck, I've bragged about it a little bit. Yeah, help out. It doesn't matter. And here's the key piece. It absolutely takes two. Two people have to be on the same page, have the same vision, and have the same understanding. Because oftentimes marriages fail they fail for one reason: selfishness. I'm gonna take, but I'm not gonna give it back. So you have to be selfless in order to have a successful relationship. It could be in marriage, kids, work. You have to be selfless. But can it, turn into being taken advantage of? Absolutely.
So how can two walk together lest they agree? So walking in accordance in marriage is so fundamental that the breakdown happens because of the selfishness of a person.
Yes.
And I mean, that scripture never really stood out to me, right? In the space of how we're suggesting that we always need to agree.
Yeah.
So are you implying, because I want to be corrected if I'm not stating you correctly for our audience here, are you implying that in order for me to move forward, do we have to agree on everything?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
because it's not the agreement factor, but it's an understanding factor. Because we remember, two different individuals, two different spirit, soul, mindset. Because what goes in your head, I will never have a clue. You may share what you think is everything, but it won't be everything, trust me. With that being said, so you two different individuals.
Carl, you're killing me, man. I had this whole image about matrimony, you know what I mean, and what it would look like, because this is my soulmate, baby. You finna tell me, but the truth is you really don't want to know everything.
No.
Don't tell me, baby.
No.
But I had a funny story real quick. I had a teacher of mine wanted to, he became like a father figure. He wanted to share something with me, and I was like, I don't want to know. Oh no, because I was afraid of how it would impact our relationship.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, there's two sides to that. You have to be open enough, to when a person comes to you and says, "Can we talk?"
Yeah.
Versus like really hear me.
Yes.
And so we don't need to agree on everything. And I think that's important to understand. Because for me, if we're not agreeing on anything, then we don't need to be friends. And
Really?
I used to think that.
Wow.
Because growing up, like only people who agree with me were people who I could walk with. And I think a misinterpretation of that scripture, how can two walk together lest they agree, is and even in marriage, and maybe that's some of the reason.
Yeah.
You can't be present in the moment if you don't understand that this person has a different mind than you.
Yes.
And so maybe I can open that floor for you, and how do you accept it? How do we accept it? You know what I mean? And maybe when we come back after commercial, you'll be able to give me some meat to that, and then we can move. This particular question is so critical, and how do we move from once we get the help, once we find the emotional support necessary to grow, how do we move from theory to practice? How do we transition from where we were to where we should be, and implementing those things. And when we make those mistakes, when we do those things wrong, how do we bounce back? So what is your take on that?
That's a great question. According to scriptures, especially in the Proverbs, one of the things that the writer keeps reemphasizing is knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And you can have knowledge, but if it's not applied, then it's knowledge for nothing. Because oftentimes we meet people in the streets where you talk to them, it's like, man, this guy's so smart. He knows so much. Why is he in the street? Why is he poor? Why is he homeless? Because they didn't apply. And that's one of the key things I think we personally struggle with as men and women.
Application. Application.
Yeah.
So applying what you know. So I don't want to suggest, I'm not trying to be prophetic, but in the future. So if you were to even, and I'm a person who wants to be fair across the board. If you would decide to reconcile with your wife or move on to reconcile with your ex-wife and move forward in a new matrimony, what would you do differently? Because now you're talking about applying things. Maya Angelou said that I'm not smart. I'm not great. I'm just a woman who made some mistakes and learned from them.
Well said. Well said. And that's where it starts. So I have a ton of brothers, 6 of them to be exact. And you see patterns, okay? Patterns is somewhat of a predictor of outcomes. So oftentimes you can notice certain patterns in people and then predict. So what I've learned personally from this experience, I'm gonna call it, is I did something that I've realized we as black men don't do very often when we go through life challenges, is seek to find wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. What we often do is, we've talked about this on the side again, we resort to substance abuse, as opposed to resorting to, very importantly, the word, going back to our Creator, going back to scriptures. But again, patterns can predict a lot of things. So the reason why I'm saying that is a couple of reasons. If you go through something, how do you learn from it? You can't sit there and hope that, all of a sudden, revelation comes, it's like, all right, cool, it's gonna be better in the next situation. No, it's not. I guarantee you're gonna repeat the same thing unless you learn from it. So what happened to me while I moved out and, started seeking, wisdom is a couple of things. I've come to grips with, okay, there's some things you missed out on, brother.
Right.
There are some opportunities there. One. Two is that, okay, what are the opportunities that I missed out on? If a person is telling you, hey, this is what I need from you in order to be in this place, listen to them and give them what they need. If you're doing what you think they need, oftentimes it can be challenging. That's applicable if you're talking about a child because you know better. But when you're talking about two grown adults, sometimes they may not be viewing it from the same perspective.
So I mean, I'm hearing you, and I totally get it. But if we could talk for a moment in that space about listening, I'm a man who's broken. I grew up in a household where my voice wasn't heard. You're expecting me now to listen in a space where I don't feel heard. How in the world do I get over How do I get over myself to listen? I understand scripture should be my first reference. And probably I think to a detriment to some brothers, and I'm not, hear me when I say this, I love the Lord. He heard my cry. But I think sometimes we try to over for us. You know what I mean? Like, if I don't know, Brother Carl, how do I fix it, man? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because a lot of marriages are failing in the church out of all places.
Yeah.
Pastors are divorcing their wives for whatever reason, and that's no stone. The Pharisees brought the woman who was committing adultery to Jesus to see what he was going to do, and Jesus flipped it. Yeah, he dealt with her, but he dealt with them first. But
absolutely.
How do I become, more practical in this?
Yeah.
And I really need it to be simplified because I don't know.
Right. Now, for me, very simple. This is how I'm viewing it. It starts with self. Okay? So oftentimes we play the blame game. We say, well, that person didn't do this, that person didn't do that. Start with you. Start with analyzing who you are, where your shortcomings are. Address them. Because we don't. We start looking at everybody else and saying, that person did. When you start playing the blame game, you're not addressing the issue, which is you. When you know who you are, you're able to better position yourself to have the proper people align with you. If you don't know who you are, anyone can come and disrupt whatever you have going on, your harmony. Anyone, because they'll tell you who you are.
So me finding out who I am, I think a lot of times we're having trouble with that because people feel as if this is who they take comfort in. Oh, this is just who I am. And you're trying. I think what you're expressing is that's not okay.
No.
Not if you want to be happily married.
Yes.
You can't come in with it's just who I am.
Yes.
Either you take it or leave it.
Which is okay at times.
Really?
I'm gonna tell you why. Okay, so if I'm gonna speak for myself. I'm not very outgoing at all. I'm a homebody. I like to stay home. I, occasionally go to the movies, dinner, whatever. But for the most part, parties, not my thing. Yes, if my girl, wife, whatever have you, hey, having a party, you want to go? Sure, but they don't think we're gonna make it every other weekend.
Right.
So with that being said, I know that. So now help that other person that you're with understand that too. They don't just simply need to hear you, but they need to understand that this is who you are. Oftentimes people come into a relationship and marriage and thinking that person, they can change them. Oh, I know who you are, but I like to party. if you're telling me, Kwaun, that you like to party, do you think that you will be the ideal person for me?
No.
Because what you're going to try to do is impart who you are onto me. And therefore, it's going to be a struggle in that relationship.
Okay, all right. Let me throw a curveball at you. Because everything I done been putting at you, you've been knocking out of the park. and in some ways challenging me. And I want to apologize to the audience because my facial expression, like, this brother really up here getting tall. And that's what Can We Talk is about. Being able for you to be transparent and share from your experiences, your position, a perspective that can help me grow, right? So, we look at a very interesting story about Samson. Here it is, a man telling a woman about his love. A woman who wants to know where his strength is. He thinks that he needs to be with her because of, I'm fighting everybody else. Now I got somebody in here who can support me. She lies to him, tricks him into some things about tying my hair, braiding this, that, and the other. Ends up falling into full deceit. And now he's lost God. He's lost his strength. A man who comes in with everything and gives it to a woman, how does he then in turn work through that once he's been burned?
Great question.
I know that was a long way around.
But it makes sense. It was clear to me. So what traditionally happened from my personal vantage point is, first, you were single, you were strong in who you are, you were confident. So when you meet that person, that woman or man, you give. Traditionally, men are givers and women are takers.
And I want to leave our viewers, and thanking Brother Carl with being here. I want to leave you guys with this. Martin Luther King said, if a man can build a better mousetrap than his neighbor, even if he builds his house in the woods, the world will make a beaded path to his doorstep. I simply phrase it and coin it as this. God is telling you that he wants you to work on something. Doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, and how far away you are. If you work on it and you perfect that thing, meaning people will find you and want to be around you. And that's a beautiful thing. Absolutely. I pray that God will bless you and keep you and cause his light to shine upon you. Thank you so much for tuning in to Can We Talk? I look to see you again next week. It's Friday. Enjoy your weekend. God bless you.
God bless.